What's up, everybody? Welcome to BCM Reviews. I'm your host, Brian. I know that I'm late to the party, but I'm here with a spoiler review of Sinners, a Southern Gothic horror film set in Jim Crow, Mississippi.
One day he's gonna follow you home.
This is the latest film from Ryan Coogler since 2022's Black Panther Wakanda Forever, a film I first heard about in early 2024. Ryan Coogler was, I believe, in the midst of a bidding war between several studios. Warner Brother, of course, won the bidding and offered Coogler a pretty much typical Hollywood deal, which includes $90 million to make the film, and also provided him with final cut, which he was allowed to basically say, hey, listen, this is my film, my project, how I want to make it. I have the choice to, remove stuff and all of those things, and I can basically make the film that I want to make. And also, this deal includes first box office gross, ownership of the film after 25 years, and of course, everything included with this deal provided Ryan with everything he needed to make the best film possible. And I'm sure if you've been following this film, the proof is in the pudding. As of recording this video now, it holds a 98% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes and a 97% audience score, and is expected to earn more money at the box office. Even right now, as of recording this, I just saw somewhere where the film might end up making, I believe 300 or 350 or 360 million dollars at the box office, basically earning its money back and making a lot of money for a rated R vampire film, which is quite an astonishment, especially seeing this film in IMAX. It's quite something to really behold, especially with Ryan Coogler, a black filmmaker who honestly at this point can do no wrong in my eyes. So with this review, I'll be breaking down the film's pros, its cons, and of course the potential legacy, not even potential, the legacy that this film will have in the coming years. So this film, in terms of pros, this film has a great cast comprised of a frequent collaborator of Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan, who plays twins Smoke and Stack. Smoke is the more reserved, more calm, collected, he's a shooter between the two, whereas Stack, he's more reckless, he's more out there, he's more inviting in the sense that he's someone who's willing to take risks and really always willing to socialize, and he doesn't really have much of a chip on his shoulder. So I really enjoyed how Michael B. Jordan performing it. He really tried to differentiate between Smoke and Stack from their voices, the way they stand, the way they talk. And the easiest thing would have been for, I don't know, to just do something really easy and have another actor play Stack or Smoke. But I do think that what this has done has really shown the range that Michael B. Jordan has. I really think that this really is one of those performances that I really hope that is a staple within his career, and I hope that people really recognize it, and hopefully people talk about it more often in his big long line list of performances along Killmonger. We also have newcomer Miles Catton, who, from what I've heard, this is his first ever film role. He plays Preacher Boy. So this is a character who has the ability, unbeknownst to him, has the ability to play the blues at a certain level to where he can communicate with people from the past and the future and kind of bridging those two worlds together. And honestly, I hope to see more of Miles Catton in the future. I think he is just a wonderful actor based off his first role, and I hope that he gets more work. We have, of course, Wunmi Mosaku, who plays Annie, who is Smoke's wife. Now, of course, I've seen Wunmi in a lot of stuff. Loki is one. The HBO show, We Run the City, I think, or I could be wrong. It's a show with John Bernthal. It's from the guy that made The Wire. Annie's purpose within the story is basically she is, I guess, like a witch doctor who kind of specializes in basically giving exposition to what we see in the movie, the killing of vampires, in terms of explaining what the group has to deal with, which is, of course, the basic things that, we use to kill vampires, like consuming garlic or using garlic to wooden stakes to silver to a lot of stuff. And there's a very powerful emotional scene at the end where Smoke dies and he sees his wife and child. And I felt that was a very powerful and emotional scene. And it really kind of really ties things full circle for them to where, all three of them are reunited at the end. And I think that was a very beautiful touch made by Ryan. We have Omar Benson Miller, who, for those who remember, he was in a lot of movies back in the day growing up, in Transformers to 8 Mile. I think maybe Get Rich or Die Trying, the 50 Cent movie. What else? Sorcerer's Apprentice with Jay Baruchel and Nicolas Cage. So it's always great to see a lot of these actors who you've seen in a few movies kind of getting their just due and doing these films in a more either doing comedic roles or more serious roles. We have, of course, Haley Steinfeld, who plays Mary. She plays like someone who was a former lover of Stack. And, it's great to see Haley Steinfeld now really as a grown actress, kind of coming to her own as an actress, especially now in Hollywood, where, we've seen her in Bumblebee, True Grit, to Kate Bishop in Hawkeye, to a lot of these other movies in her career. We have Jamie Lawson, who I hope, gets more work, more roles. I think that this is yet another great highlight within her career for her, because not only is she acting, but she's also singing. And for those who don't know, Jamie Lawson has been in a lot of movies. The Batman, which I think was the big one for her, The Penguin Show, and she played a very integral part in the sense that it was kind of like, let's get basically all the fine black people in this movie and just put them in there. And I think that was just incredible. We have Jack O'Connell, who plays the Irish vampire Remick, who is the main antagonist of this film. You know what? This is yet another one of those characters that Ryan seems to create so well, where he doesn't really create necessarily black and white characters, but he creates very complex, very multi-layered characters who they're bad, but they're bad, but they're necessarily you can understand their point of view. And I think that with Remick, what they've done, where we start off by when he is burned, he's being chased by the Choctaw tribe, and he is in a very vulnerable state. And as we kind of move forward with him and we kind of follow his point of view, we kind of really see that so this guy, he's not what he seems, but he's also not someone who we necessarily can really judge from a surface level. So I think that, the character of Remick, they all fit in this kind of tapestry that Ryan Coogler has done when it comes to making a lot of these very complex characters. And last but not least, the criminally underrated Delroy Lindo as Delta Slim. Now, I put a post on my Instagram, which people should follow, and honestly, it's always great to see these older veteran actors coming in, especially surrounded by a cast of younger actors. Kind of there's a healthy thing, especially, something that I talked about with my sister about, how can you say, I always love a film that kind of bridges the old with the new, and seeing someone like Delroy Lindo, who has been in the business for a very long time. I remember him as West Indian Archie from Malcolm X, to his role in Clockers, to his incredible performance in The Five Bloods, who at least for me, I felt that he should have received a nomination or something, or just at least received an award of some kind, because I just think that Delroy Lindo, for how many years now? I think maybe 20 years or maybe even 30, has put in he's one of those consistent actors pretty much. And I think that, seeing him in this kind of really shows that in the age of, I think he's in his 70s, age is not a factor, in that no matter what he's in, no matter how much screen time you give him, he is always, always, always going to give you 110% of himself in any role he gets. So he's going to kill every role he gets. Another great thing is the expert filmmaking and the use of IMAX cameras. Speaking about IMAX, as we all know, Sir Christopher Nolan, has kind of really pioneered the use of IMAX cameras, especially with The Dark Knight. And Ryan Coogler, of course, speaking about how, when he came to IMAX cameras and, all of these things, he saw The Dark Knight, I believe, think maybe at 4 a.m. or something. I'm not sure. 4 a.m. for a movie. That's interesting. Honestly, I really love the fact that Ryan for this movie decided to go all in by deciding to shoot on film and not digital, and really decided to really give the film a very textured feel to it, because, within the film world, oftentimes have these debates on what's better. Is it film or is it digital? So having seen this film in IMAX, I felt that every shot, every placement of everything was very intricately constructed in terms of the lighting, the staging, to everything, especially as it leads to the iconic scene. And also, uh, I forgot to write down her name, but I believe her first name is Autumn, and she is the first woman to operate, I believe, an IMAX camera. And I believe that Autumn has done a really incredible job, and I hope that Ryan Coogler moving forward decides to use more IMAX cameras in a lot of his future films, which also leads to that iconic scene. Now, what they've done in the film, I think it's maybe halfway in, as Sammy Boy is about to perform his song. Well, as he's performing his song, Sammy Boy, using his powers unbeknownst to him, kind of decides to really what he's done unbeknownst to him is bridge the president past, and it kind of goes throughout throughout the shack, and recreates the painting basically. But what they do is the camera kind of goes through the hall or the room. It does this really cool transition where we follow Sammy first, then we see someone who's playing the electric guitar in like almost like a 70s a Jimi Hendrix type of look. Then we cut to someone who's on the turntable. Then we cut to someone who is twerking in the kitchen. And then we kind of see like this mix of multiple cultures kind of mixing together as one. We see West African culture presented, someone playing with the bongos, and it kind of transitions to the ceiling kind of like being set on fire. Then it cuts to a back shot of Remick and the other two vampires that he infected. And it kind of really played off in like this really like very like original way. And honestly, I really hope pretty soon, maybe this week or maybe even I don't know when, but I really would like to really read the notes on a scene, like the Vanity Fair videos that directors do, notes on a scene, and really like have a breakdown as to how Ryan actually pulled that off. And I think that is incredible. And it's one of those things that, as you watch, really, really put the filmmaking to another level. And it's not something that feels, how can you say, because they're riffing off another filmmaker. It doesn't feel like Ryan's riffing off another filmmaker, and he really has created something very cool and original with that scene. And I hope that the scene gets talked about more, and hopefully once everybody sees it, this will be one of those great cinematic scenes. There is the expertly crafted musical numbers. I'm going to be really honest with you. I'm really not a musical guy, but I enjoyed the very intricate musical pieces that Orion has created, from that scene that we previously talked about to the musical numbers that he created with Ludwig Göransson and some blues players and a lot of people like that. So really incredible. In terms of songs, there is of course that song from the iconic scene that I just mentioned, I Lied to You, Pick Poor Robin Clean, Rocky Road to Dublin, and Pale Pale Moon. And I think those are, as of now, my 4 favorite songs from the movie. And Ludwig Göransson. Now, this might be too soon to say, but I'll have to say that Ludwig Göransson might be on his way to be the next Hans Zimmer. Like, I think that Ludwig from the past, I don't know, I forget how long he's been doing this, but I know that he has worked with Childish Gambino on his albums, to making the soundtrack, to making the score for Black Panther, to, I don't know, what else has he worked on? Oppenheimer, The Odyssey, to The Mandalorian, to a lot of, great bodies of work. And honestly, I'm just always excited to always hear his sound in any movie. So much so that I remember I don't know, there was like this, anytime we had Remick on the screen, there was like this electric guitar riff, which to me, kind of felt like a Batman Beyond sound. Which, side note here, little side tangent here. If they ever decide to make a Batman Beyond movie or TV show, Ludwig is your guy to make the soundtrack for it. All I'm saying. The next bit, the next talking point, next pro. It employs post-credit scenes without it feeling like sequel bait. Now, the post-credit scenes end. There are two post-credit scenes. One is where we follow an older Sammy, who is at this point, 60 years later, so in 1992, he is a legendary blues player, and is also played by a real-life blues player. I forget his name right now. His name escapes me. I think it's Buddy something. But anyway, we finally see him, and he is greeted by Stack and Mary, who survived the final scene in the movie. Of course, Stack presents Sammy with a choice whether he can live like a vampire or he can live his life waiting to die. But Sammy, of course, having survived what he survived, decides not to take Stack on his offer. And the second one, it ends with, at least how I interpreted, was Sammy singing in the church, "This Little Light of Mine." I think, at least for me, what I thought of it was, I guess his ability to sing, to play the blues, was his light, and the fact that he kind of really decided not to accept what was being offered to him by Remick, by Stack, was very evocative that no matter what happened, he was always going to try his best to really keep the light side of him, no matter what he was being offered. So I felt that was just a great post-credit scene. So much so that I kind of think that it was kind of like a post-credit scene that I can say, when it comes to post-credit scenes, we always think of Marvel, right? And they always do future tease for their future projects. But with this film, what did they do is kind of really let us know, the audience know, that this film kind of closes the chapter in a way. It's meant to close the chapter, then to open a new chapter. Basically to say that this is kind of like the bookend to this first film, because as I've researched and from what I've been told is that there's no plans to make a sequel, which I hope not, because I think that this film is so good and so special that I don't think it warrants one, and it shouldn't. And I think this film is so good that I think that it can stand on its own, and it doesn't need a sequel, spin-off, or anything else, or a TV show of that kind. And also, something that's very important is that this film is a celebration of culture and Black music in America. This is just something that, at least for me, what I enjoyed so much about this movie was that, Ryan Coogler, of course, like a lot of his other filmmakers, like Spike Lee, like Ava DuVernay, aren't shying away from Black themes to Black culture, at least movies that are kind of meant to show the good and the bad of being Black in America. So I do think that what this film has really much done is create a sense of telling a new story, an original story, but kind of giving a twist to it. And Ryan Coogler's decision to decide to go to horror and really decide to say, hey, I want to tell this specific type of story with Black people, but I also want to add horror elements. So I want to have vampires. And I think that this creative endeavor really goes to show that you can have stories with Black people and create very original stories without it being based on a true story or anything like that. So I think that those are just great things to really have, especially now in an age where, people always say, hey, whatever happened to original storytelling or being original in Hollywood, where, there's always recycled IP, there's always reboots, there's always movies based on X, Y, and Z. So to have this film come out and decide to say, hey, I want to make a movie about this, and I want to have X, Y, and Z, and I want to not only that, but also inspire others to do the same things that I can do. It's just quite inspiring, and honestly, this really lets us know that movies are not dead. And pretty much those covers the pros of the film. And honestly, I hope the film does gangbusters and people continue to talk about it. Now, in terms of cons and nitpicks, I don't have many. Having only just seen it once, I guess the only criticisms that only criticism that I have are that at times the film tends to repeat information to us. Just a small nitpick that I have, but it was during that iconic scene, the Wonder, where they kind of recreate the Sugar Shack image. I think the only thing that I was not particularly a fan of was we hear Annie kind of voice from the beginning of the movie, kind of giving us that same expository information. But I just felt like, I don't know, we already heard this before. We don't need to, I don't feel we always need to have our hands being held. I think that, us as the audience, we can always like, figure things out on our own. And I just felt that that was just one little detail that I just didn't really felt that was necessary. And also just another con, maybe just more so nitpick. In fact, these are all nitpicks. I'd say just how careless Annie and Smoke are, because when we learn that people have been, infected by Remic's spell or bitten by Remic, they decide to ask everyone to leave the party, knowing that Remic and the other vampires are out there. So that's basically kind of sending your lambs to slaughter in a sense. Whereas what they should have done was basically ask everybody to stay until sunrise and, basically stay until sunrise until Remic and the other vampires have left. So I don't know, that's just a little nitpick that I have. Maybe, I don't know, having just only seen it once, maybe it's the way that the whole scene played out. Maybe it's because they didn't know about what vampires are, but then again, I don't know, it just felt like, given the danger that was outside, I felt that it would be better if you would just ask everybody to just stay inside until sunrise. But then again, you also have the danger of the clan coming in at the end of the movie. Then again, that would have been an issue as well. I don't know. That's just me talking, I guess, but I don't know. That's just a small nitpick that I have. But then again, that's just, having just seen the movie once, who knows, maybe after a second viewing or third viewing, I might speak differently about it at the end and give this film a 10 out of 10. Now, my closing thoughts and my thoughts on the legacy of this film is that this is, of course, yet another great film that Ryan Coogler has added into his filmography. It demonstrates that Ryan Coogler has cemented himself as one of the best working filmmakers of his generation, and that anything he creates will be met with hype, and his name now has weight. Similar to Christopher Nolan, every time you watch a trailer and it says Christopher Nolan, that lets you know that you're in for a ride and you're going to get something really special. Especially now with the future projects that he's working on, like the X-Files reboots that's in the works, Black Panther 3, or any other projects he wants to pursue at Warner Brothers, or maybe even at DC Studios. I don't know, James Gunn and Peter Safran want to work with him. Or Kevin Feige, give him Blade. I believe that in the later years, or even sooner, this film might be added in the Criterion Collection or the American Film Registry as, I think, one of the best films ever made. And yeah, honestly, those are my thoughts on the movie. My closing thoughts in terms of how I would rank it. My score for this film is a 9 out of 10. I think what this film has done is elevated the bar when it comes to films coming out this year. The films this year, they've been pretty okay, but they haven't really garnered the attention that this film has had. And I think that the fact that out of all the films that came out this year, this film has really decided to say, hey, we're going to step our game up. The other films have not really restored the feeling yet, so we're going to really set the bar in terms of this is what a film is supposed to be, and everybody else needs to step up. And it really makes me excited for all the other films that we're getting, like Mission Impossible, Thunderbolt, Superman, Fantastic Four, the new Jurassic Park film, and many others to come. That's everything. That's my rating. So please share your thoughts and comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video, and please look out for more content like this. Thank you.